It's the idyllic land painted by Gauguin, a place where mutineers of the Bounty sought refuge. The early Europeans spoke of a beautiful people in a permissive paradise. The colonials stayed, and today Tahiti and the rest of French Polynesia is more European than ever. And if there's any doubt about the clutch of the motherland, France, as this sprawling island group of 250,000 people, is no longer just an overseas territory, but what it calls an overseas country of the French Republic. France says it can't thank Polynesia enough for something it did to this place in the 1960s, 70s, 80s and 90s. But now there's a seismic shift of another kind. The former workers of the nuclear testing program at Mururoa are speaking out like never before. And what they have to say, the French government would rather not hear.
What the French government have done to my people is something that is hard to forgive.
On the island of Taha, villagers greet the first new president of French Polynesia for 20 years. Oscar Temerou's narrow election victory marks a profound change from former governments loyal to Paris and compliant. Not content with the level of autonomy his people have with France, he wants full independence. Most people call this place French Polynesia. What do you call it?
No, this is French occupied Polynesia. That is the truth. This country has been occupied. There has been war between our ancestors.
The rhetoric of the new president surprises even his most radical followers. But Oscar Temerou has another agenda. This one resonates with the thousands of Polynesians who helped France develop the bomb.
I know what happened on the atoll of Mururoa. I was one of the first people who went there.
The Cold War and the Pacific was the world's nuclear playground. Ground zero for the Americans was the Marshall Islands. They vaporized several atolls and later admitted to irradiating hundreds of villages.
The French exploded their third hydrogen device in the atmosphere. The blast occurred in the South Pacific above Mururoa Atoll in the French Polynesia.
Not to be outdone in its nuclear ambitions, the French settled on the atolls of Mururoa and nearby Whangataufa. From 1966, they detonated 46 atomic bombs above ground and 147 below.
I used to work as a civil servant in the customs administration to control all those cargoes used to come from France. We have seen banners in the atolls, and it was written in red, in big color. This zone is very contaminated. Don't fish here anymore. And we have seen all that signs everywhere. And that was the time I started to say, oh, what you doing here? They are contaminating your country.
When France announced in 1995 it would resume testing, Oscar Temerou was already his people's leading anti-nuclear activist.
What form is that protest taking?
Well, we are preparing the biggest rally never organized in this country for the maybe sometime next week.
The streets erupted in violence as French police fought with Tahitian demonstrators. At night, the capital Papeete burned. The tests were to last only a few months in the face of worldwide condemnation.
I am a Maori of this country. I have my first duty is to protect my people and the future generation. So I started to speak up from there. It was not very easy. I thank God every day because I'm still alive.
Today, most of the people that have worked on Mururoa have a similar sort of health problem, and because the doctor cannot explain to them exactly what they have, these people are convinced that the problem that they have come from the fact that they have working on nuclear site.
Roland Oldham is neither a doctor nor a scientist, but he's convinced that thousands of civilian workers at Mururoa were exposed to radiation and are suffering the consequences. He heads an association of 3,000 former workers. They're dying at an average age of 51 years. On this day, he's visiting Raymond Pier, whose job it was to work in the shafts where bombs were placed. Local contractors like Mr. Pier did most of the menial work. He's since suffered testicular cancer and is in poor health. The Association of Former Mururoa Workers has been asked by the new president to set up a register of those who spent time on the atoll. It seems an impossible task. All records connected with the testing program have been classified as secret by the French. The workers themselves have been muzzled.
Well, first of all, when you start working in Mururoa, like most of the workers say, you have to sign a contract saying that it is a very important act that you are doing in Mururoa, and it is a matter of secret defense.
If ever there was a symbol of colonial pride in French Polynesia, this is it, the new presidential palace. Oscar Temeru has moved in, but it was built by the man the new president turfed out. For 2 decades, Gaston Flosse was more like a king than a president, a close friend and political fundraiser for French President Jacques Chirac, and the man also who welcomed the testing program and the investment that came with it.
Je l'ai dit à plusieurs reprises, et je le répète aujourd'hui, s'il y avait eu le moindre doute sur la sécurité des expériences nucléaires françaises, j'aurais été le premier à demander à la France d'arrêter ces expériences.
In a place so dependent upon France for its economic existence, political patronage here means everything. In the past, those who've agitated over the Mururoa issue claim they've been isolated and harassed. Roland Oldham says he was sacked 3 times from public service jobs.
Well, a lot of people have been scared for many years. Even today, a lot of people are not speaking freely.
Many people in French Polynesia have told us they feel intimidated about talking about this, intimidated by you.
Jamais je n'ai fait pression sur qui que ce soit, d'ailleurs non seulement sur ce problème-là, sur tout autre. Ici, nous sommes tout à fait en pays démocratique et il y a une liberté d'expression totale.
Dr. Gilles Sibiran is one medico who is speaking out. He believes workers engaged in especially the above-ground tests may have suffered radiation poisoning, but their official cause of death will never be noted.
De personnes qui ont pu mourir dans les années 80. Et à ce moment-là, le système de santé en Polynésie n'était pas suffisamment développé pour vérifier s'ils sont morts d'une leucémie aiguë.
As Jacques Chirac was celebrating Bastille Day with his people, the new president of French Polynesia was on his way to Paris to present his credentials.
How does it feel to be back as president of your country?
Yeah, that's different. It's different.
Normally this would be a red carpet event, but Oscar Temerou was about to find out that Jacques Chirac didn't want to know about him.
Could I ask you, sir, how do you feel about not meeting President Chirac?
Oh, we're still waiting for the reply from his secretary. Haven't got it yet.
Maybe he's scared to meet me. I don't know.
Why didn't he want to see you?
I don't know.
It was a monumental presidential snub, but hardly a surprising rebuff for the man who wants to take the French out of French Polynesia. Oscar Temerou was here to demand compensation for the workers of Mururoa. All he got was a predictable refrain from Overseas Minister Brigitte Giardin.
Nous ne cachons absolument rien sur ce sujet et vraiment nos essais se sont toujours déroulés dans des conditions de sécurité pour la santé des populations et s'il devait y avoir un lien à établir, encore une fois, ça se fera dans la plus grande transparence.
The French government position is simple. There was no human exposure to radiation, therefore there can be no attributable sickness and no basis for legal claims. As the new president toured a hospice for sick compatriots, it was becoming clear that his mission would not be easy.
Doctors still have to find out proofs, the relations between the French nuclear testing and the disease, and that's very hard to do.
The political fallout of the nuclear testing program swept France long before Oscar Temerou began to agitate here. In the city of Lyon, doctors and French military veterans have mobilised to try to find any connection between service and sickness. It's not publicly known how many French military personnel served at Mururoa. It's thought to be about 5,000. Dr. Jean-Louis Valax surveyed 900 veterans and found they suffered twice the incidence of cancer as other men. His study also found high rates of birth defects in the children of veterans.
Oui. Donc, effectivement, il y a des vétérans qui ont reçu la consigne de ne pas avoir d'enfants dans les 5 ou 10 ans qui ont suivi les essais, mais ça a été dit oralement. Personne, aucun médecin militaire n'a osé écrire cela sur du papier. Mais effectivement, certains vétérans n'en ont pas tenu compte. Donc ce qui me choque beaucoup, c'est la non prise en compte de la réalité scientifique et médicale actuelle par soit le gouvernement, soit les médecins militaires.
The French veterans are preparing a landmark legal challenge they hope will open the door for other claims. Michel Defontaine will be one of the first to sue. He's partially blind, a legacy, he says, of his role in the test program. Mr. Defontaine swam in lagoons that contained the runoff of aircraft washed after flying through radioactive cloud.
Moi je demande, c'est que la reconnaissance du service accompli pour la France, pour la nation, la reconnaissance, et on demande des indemnisations, bien sûr. Mais le principal, c'est l'indemnité morale, quoi.
This is a very sacred place. This is the place where we used to sacrifice, human sacrifice.
Undaunted by the brush-off on his first presidential trip to Paris, Oscar Temeru is back home and calling on his people to embrace their spiritual past. The Mare is a traditional place of worship for Polynesians. But as much as Oscar Temeru looks to the ancient past for enlightenment, he's reminded of unfinished business in his country's more recent history. The French government has told him that any former Mururoa worker will be able to receive social security benefits if they're sick, but proving the connection is still the difficulty.
Hospital used to be controlled by the army. That's a big problem.
Do those records exist or have they disappeared?
They have disappeared. It's secret defense.
They're still under lock and key somewhere?
Yes, yes.
So do you as President expect to have the chance to get that key and open it?
We'll try our best.
French Polynesia's first study into the health of its people is likely to be stymied through lack of information before it gets off the ground. There's concerted political opposition here as well. Senator Gaston Floss, the president of 20 years, used to swim in the lagoon of Mururoa to demonstrate it was safe. Now he wishes the whole issue would go away. Senator Floss, you have worked very hard for French Polynesia.
Non, je crois que c'est pas vrai. On arrête là. C'est pas la peine. C'est pas la peine de. Non, c'est pas la peine de continuer. Je suis pas venu ici pour parler des essais nucléaires. Enfin, c'est un piège tout ça.
So there are some other questions I'd like to ask you, if possible.
On a perdu près d'une demi-heure uniquement sur ce problème-là. Et si j'avais su que c'était sur cette question-là, j'aurais refusé l'interview.
It's an entrenched belief in traditional Polynesian society that to hurt the land is to harm the people. Roland Oldham's organisation is made up of thousands of men who claim they're victims of a momentous event that shook the land again and again. Now they want a new untested president to be their advocate.
We do hope that in the future with the new government we may have some open door to come across the truth.
Do you think there's a chance that now that he's president that things will change and that he'll become the politician and forget where he came from?
Well, it would be sad for him if he forgets where he came from. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I do believe that his struggle, his engagement in issues of independence, like in nuclear issue, is something that comes strongly from deep inside the guy.
The new president wants his country to be independent from France in 10 to 15 years. In the meantime, there's the Mururoa campaign to run, and it's personal, for a reason he doesn't often talk about.
Yes, we lost one of our son. He was, my wife was 7 months pregnant, and we lost the second one. He was handicapped. He was 17 years old. And you have all those problems in every family.
And how's your own health?
Well, I can say I'm still all right. I'm still all right.
The multinational nuclear testing ground that was the South Pacific has produced a generation of victims unable to explain their afflictions. No one even knows how many sick there are anyway. In French Polynesia, the crusading anti-nuclear leader turned president has only a flimsy hold on power and hostile relations with Mother France. The civilian and military workers of the early above-ground testing are ailing and ageing. And in a country with the highest rate of thyroid cancer in the world, a culture of silence is keeping a lid on happenings at what the Polynesians call the place of the big secret.